Hey guys, how are you doing? I hope that everything is good. We are getting close to the end of our semester. If you can believe it, it has been a very fast, very packed semester. But I hope that you have gotten a good grasp of what modern English grammar is all about. I know that it's difficult to do this class in the summer. From what the students tell me, it's difficult to do this class anytime, so you guys are the brave ones. You did it in the summer, and in addition, you did it online. So, congrats to you. And what I want to do is basically for this week, the material that we're going to cover is going to be on sentences. So I'm first going to talk to you a little bit about the structure of main clauses, and then I'll have a lecture on embedded clause structures. And that will be the material that will be included in the final exam, as well as everything else that we have covered this semester. And I will give you a final exam review, and then I'll send to you the answers for the final exam review. So try to go through the review before and then check your answers. And then I'll, based on the questions that you guys asked me, I'll give you another lecture for the final exam with specific points, things that you wanted to go over or things that may have been confusing. So ask me, you can start, just say this for the final exam review. I don't really understand. How do you know the difference between the ditransitive and the complex transitive verb groups, something like that. Whatever it is, okay? Just let me know. So we're talking about all semester sentences. Notice that I have a new marker. Since it's almost the end of the semester, I have purchased new markers. And now you can read what's written on the board. So, thus far we have been talking about two features of sentences. Basically, the idea is that every single sentence is made up of two things: the subject and the predicate. So if we think about it in terms of meaning, what is the subject of the sentence? The subject is what the sentence is about. The subject is the topic of the sentence. So if you have a sentence like, raining is, that's a little bit rude. Rain is depressing. Okay, so rain is the subject of the sentence, it's the topic, it's what the sentence is about. And then you say is depressing, that's giving you a comment on that topic. So every sentence in English can be divided up into subject and predicate, and then structurally, in terms of the actual syntax of the sentence, what you will always have for every single sentence will be the noun phrase subject and the verb phrase predicate. It will always be a noun phrase if it's a subject, and it will always be a verb phrase if it's a predicate. In terms of the whole structure of the sentence, that's really all you can say is going to be true for every single sentence, because of course sentences are going to vary a lot in terms of their internal structure, what is happening within the VP, what's going on within the verb group, okay? So, but for now we want to look at things just from the point of view of the level of the sentence. So for example, if we had the sentence, John cried. So the most basic division that we could make in this sentence is between subject and predicate. And John, you can just show as noun phrase with this shorthand triangle. Cried is the complete verb phrase. There are no complements to the verb here. Why? Because cried is an intransitive verb, right? So all the material within VP is going to be cried. All the material within NP is going to be John. So if you have something more complicated than that, it's still going to be the same. So in other words, at the main clause level, you will always, always, always have this material. This will always be there. So if you have a sentence like, a young girl who had led the war, so only Okay, so now we're looking at a sentence that happens to have a very complex subject. And in fact, if you think about it, within this subject, the young girl who had fled the war zone only 3 days before, we can see material that we would identify as being a verb group, a verb phrase, a predicate, and actually a sentence. So within a given noun phrase and within a given verb phrase, you can have more embedded clauses, more prepositional phrases, more noun phrases, and things can get as complex as any sentence that you can imagine. So the point is that for every single main clause, the basic division will always just be between the subject and the predicate. So keep it clear. When some of you were working on the assignments on the verb group, you started looking at inside the subject. Okay, so what's going on here with fled the war zone, so fled is past tense, and so characterizing the properties of the verb group. And that's true, it's accurate that that is a verb group, but it's a verb group that we're not looking at because it's inside the subject of the sentence. So it would be the same if we had something inside the predicate. If we had a sentence like, the young girl who had fled the war zone only 3 days before was talking with a man who was in charge of all the cadets. So if you take this sentence, we know our whole subject is just going to be the young girl who had fled the war zone only 3 days before. But the same thing now is going on within the predicate, was talking with the man who was in charge of all the cadets. Here, within this, we see that we have more subjects, more predicates, verb groups, verb phrases, complements of the verb. But what we want to do is we want to ignore that level of complexity for now and just think about things in terms of this layer of structure. So this is what you will always have for every sentence, which is a main clause. And clause just means exactly the same thing as sentence. So if I say sentence or I say clause, it's exactly the same thing. Why? Because it's always just a subject plus a predicate. That's the definition of a clause. Okay, so let's look at some examples where we have sentences that may not seem to fit the pattern that we have described for sentences. Sentences that might look uneven. So for example, if you have the sentence, it is raining. What's going on with this sentence? It is raining. Why do we say in English, it is raining? Why don't we just say, is raining? What is this it doing here? When we say it is raining, do we mean that cloud out there, that particular place, that sky, that thing out there is raining? It doesn't really have that import, right? We're just saying, basically, raining is happening. And of course, in many languages that you are familiar with, the way that you would translate that sentence would be to say just is raining, or just the verb rain. In other words, you don't have to have anything over here like this word it. And if you tried to say something like that in a language in which it's natural to just have the verb itself, then you'd get a really weird sentence. So if you kind of translate that into Spanish and you say it is raining and you make this an overt pronoun, then it sounds like you're pointing out to some particular item that is doing the action of raining. Whereas that wouldn't be the natural way to express the sentence, it is raining, just the normal natural way. So what is going on here? It is what we call an expletive subject, also known as an empty subject. So by expletive, we don't mean a bad word, a word that you shouldn't say. Expletive means, in linguistics, a word that has no meaning, a word that carries no meaning. So, and this is the same idea with empty subject. The idea is that really, when you say it is raining, this it doesn't carry any specific meaning. It's not pointing to a particular thing. Well, you might wonder to yourself, okay, so if we have this it expletive in the subject position, and it doesn't mean anything, what is it doing there? Why do we have it there? And the reason that we have it there is because in English, we have a rule that says that every sentence has to have an overt subject. Every sentence has to have a subject that is spoken in the sentence. So for example, if you think about a sequence of sentences, so if you have the sentence, Rich is tall. He is very nice. He went to the Bahamas. Okay, so here we have something larger than a sentence. Why? Because now it's a whole discourse. A discourse is a sequence of sentences that together are meaningful. So when you say Rich is tall, and you have immediately following that, he is very nice, he went to the Bahamas, what is the most natural way to interpret he and he is very nice and he went to the Bahamas as being the same person as Rich, right? So we refer this pronoun he back to Rich, and we refer this pronoun back to Rich. And you might wonder, well, why do we do that? What's the reason behind that? And the reason behind that is because we know that pronouns are used in discourse as place markers for noun phrases. And we know that names like Rich are a type of noun phrase. They're made up of a single word, but they still have the structure of a full noun phrase. So you have sitting in the subject position the noun phrase Rich is tall. And then you have the next sentence, he. Aha. As soon as you get to a pronoun, the pronoun says, I have to be understood somehow. What is my meaning? What do I refer to? Because if you, out of the blue, walk up to someone on the street and say, hey, she's really nice, the person on the street is going to look at you and say, who's really nice? What are you talking about? What's going on? So, in particular with the third person pronouns, he, she, it, notice that if you were to say, right, you walk up to someone on the street and you say, you're really nice. Now we've still used a pronoun there, you, but what's going on? We have the second person pronoun. And how can we always understand the second person pronoun in terms of who the person is speaking to? So the addressee is the one referred to with you. Or if you're talking about yourself, you walk up to someone on the street and you say, I'm really happy. They have no problem understanding that because they know that I has to refer to the speaker of the sentence. So, when we talk about pronouns referring back, we're talking specifically about third person pronouns. He, she, it, and they. And then, of course, all of their other forms, her, his, them. Okay? So, the idea is here that you have Rich is tall. He is very nice. He went to the Bahamas. In English, it's not possible to just leave out this subject, even if we are just continuing to talk about the same person, right? So even if the subject of the next sentence is the same as the subject of the sentence that came before, still you can't say, Rich is tall, is very nice, went to the Bahamas. That's really weird, right? It doesn't sound like an English type of sentence. It might be something that somebody would say if they're learning English, because, of course, as you guys know, there are many languages in the world that work this way, in which you don't need to overtly have the subject of the sentence every time you use that expression. So, for example, if you were going to translate this, do like a translation. If you speak a Romance language or many languages of the world, so say Rich is tall, and then when you get to your next sentence, do you need to have that word that means he, or can you just have is very nice? And then can you just have the next sentence, went to Bahamas. And you understand that the subject of these two sentences is the same as the subject of the first sentence. So it's not that these two sentences don't have subjects. They do have subjects. They have to have subjects. So we think that that's universal. That's common across all languages. Every every sentence is comprised of a subject and a predicate. And the order in which they occur differs among languages, but every single sentence is comprised of a subject and predicate. So even though you may not pronounce that in another language, it's still there in what we say a covert way, in a hidden way. Because the meaning has to be the same as rich. You can't say rich is tall and then is very nice and switch all of a sudden this meaning to another person. So think about someone like Mary. It wouldn't make sense. So if you said rich is tall and then is very nice, and then the person is understanding that you're saying rich is very nice, and you're like, since Mary is very nice, blah, 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 the person's not going to be following you because they will not expect you to shift the subject. As long as you're continuing along with the discourse, you're going to assume to maintain the same subject.